Hey guys, it's Ashley from The Awakened State. So last week I frequently talked a lot about spiritual growth and the ways that we can track. So this week I really wanted to honor one of the things that I talked about, which was moon cycling. I think this is, oh my God, it's such a fun topic to really geek out on. But ultimately I wanted to go a little bit more in depth on what I'm talking about when it comes to moon cycling. So let's dive in. Hey guys, it is Ashley from theawakenedstate.net. I have a hair thing obviously going on. Let's talk about moon cycling. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to give you a little graphic right here so that you can get a full picture, a visual. I'm a visual person. I like visuals. So I'm going to give you the full visual of what a moon tracker looks like. So here's the thing. Over the years, I started bringing more awareness to what is called body awareness. And this really, really helped a ton with my emotional healing journey. And what I began to find is a lot of more divine feminine teachings talk a lot about embodiment. And one of the ways that I learned a ton about embodiment was through tracking my cycle. And so I was reading this book called Code Red by Lisa Lister. She's great. And in her book, she talks a lot about tracking her cycle and how tracking her cycle wasn't about, getting pregnant. It was just more so about being aware of her feminine wisdom and how her energy would shift and change during each phase of her cycle. And from a result from that, she started to plan her life accordingly to that particular cycle. And this is something I totally geek out on because, wow, I've had so many shifts from doing this. I haven't done it as frequently now, but when I was really heavily in like a really big healing stage in my life, I did a ton of work with moon cycling. And I still now kind of do it, but I don't do it as rapidly as I did. I'm actually using the app called Stardust. Oh, if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it because it shows you the cycle of the moon and you can track your cycle with the moon. It's pretty incredible. I'm not an affiliate, but I just fucking love it. So anyway, the moon tracking app or the moon the moon cycling will show you so much about your energy, your productivity, how your energy responds differently, ebbs and flows during cycles, and inevitably it'll show you a ton about your emotions and how your emotions shift and change just like the moon. And what I've learned from this practice is tracking my cycle with the moon and tracking my energy and my emotions allowed me to bring awareness to what I needed to heal. And I started to notice that I had been having theories about this, and no one's really proved me wrong yet, but I've noticed that usually in our cycles, doing like our PMS phase, like we'll have immense healing come up. And when we experience that drastic shift, that's actually a sign to turn inward, like as we turn inward for our menstruation cycle, and inevitably work on what's coming up during that transition phase into menstruation. We're shedding, right? We're shedding. So when we look at healing from this lens of when we're in the PMS phase and we got all these wild emotions and we're like in the wild woman phase, we're bringing up what needs to heal. And in the menstruation phase, we're kind of at this turning point of releasing and letting go of that. So releasing and letting go of those particular emotions. And what I started to notice is the more that I tracked my cycle, and I mean, this doesn't have to be like elaborate. It was like, I wrote like, I'm complaining about this today. I feel crappy. I feel creative. I feel moody, you know, and it just allowed me to kind of bring awareness to my emotions, my energy, and usually what emotional upheaval I was having. Or if I felt really good and then I was like, I'm super happy and amazed today, or whatever. What inevitably occurred is I started to bring so much awareness to how my energy shifted during my cycles and during each season of my cycle. And so what inevitably happened is, the really cool thing is, I started to notice how my productivity changed too. So usually in pre-ovulation, when I'm cycling with the moon, I would notice that I'm heavily into planning, visioning, and critiquing, like, what needs to be changed? Like, what do I want to do next? What do I need to do in the, in terms of the house? What do I want to do this? And it allowed me to go into like a planning mode. And then once I shifted into ovulation, I noticed I was super talkative. I was super social and creative and very high energy. And I would frequently want to do all the things and explore all the things and go all the places. And then I noticed as I shift to the PMS stage, I would move more into the wild woman of critical thinking, editing, really like, this needs to go, I'm done with this. Kind of being in this, like, no fucks given, this stuff needs to end, this needs to be let go, this needs to be done. And allowing me to kind of like almost systemize like my workflow or my goals. And as a result, when I shifted into the last phase of menstruation, this is the rest time. This is the internalized time. This is meditation time. This is slowing down time. And this cultivation of different energy with my feminine wisdom, it allowed me to tap into my intuition, tune into my body more, to understand my body's needs. And as a result, I've changed so many things. Like, it allowed me to shift my productivity schedule. It allowed me to change when I schedule meetings or Zoom calls. It allowed me to shift how I show up. And inevitably, one of the hugest things, it allowed me to shift my diet. Because I would notice, as I brought more awareness in, I would start to notice I have to shift my diet once I'm later off in my cycle. And so in what I would notice with tracking the moon, with the moon phases, is I'd be like, I get really like kind of like uncomfortably bloaty and awful the more I have dairy. And I started to notice that it's only during certain periods of when I was heavily PMSing. And so I started to shift that because of the moon cycling and the charting that I was doing with the moon. And so I started to change my diet. And then I started to look at how I could change my visioning to be more by my pre-ovulation phase. And I started to change how I would show up and do live videos or whatever in my ovulation phase. And literally, I kid you not, it shifted completely how I show up, because I had the awareness of how my emotions, my energy, my productivity, and, my hormones, and how all of them were operating. And as a result, it allowed me to heal things. It allowed me to show up better. It allowed me to rest when I needed to rest. It allowed me to connect to my body more, so I'm more tuned in and tapped on to my intuition. And as a result, it created so much more alignment. So the moon tracking, I highly, highly recommend it, especially as a woman, to a woman. Like, it's an incredible tool to understand yourself, to understand your feminine wisdom, to really tap into when is your best energy times, when is your best productivity times, when is your best rest times, and to look at how you can personally use that to understand yourself easier and to also have more kindness and sympathy to yourself. When I started to realize that I am not remotely productive on day 27 of my cycle, when I started to be aware of that, I had way more kindness to myself. Like, I am not productive. It's okay. Versus, I should get all of this done. If I don't get all of this done and do all these chores and do all of this, then I'm going to beat myself up about it. God, that was previous me versus, oh, it's okay. It's my hormones. That's a totally different vibe entirely than not tracking my cycle and being aware of that. And so what I really want to say here is I highly recommend moon tracking. And if you are interested in getting started, I have two options for you. I have a printable version, and then I also have the digital planner version, so you can also get started today. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed my behind the scenes look into moon charting. If you have any questions about moon charting, I would love to geek out with you. So definitely leave those comments below, and I'll see you guys next week.